Morning. I'm a change management person, as much as I was trying to avoid this throughout my entire adult life. I started as a therapist. I don't think that I made any difference. And so I quit. I went to business school, became a business professor, and somehow along the lines I started to specialize in change management. So a whole circle. And over the years, I got really interested in what gets us to change. How do we effectively change? Do we change to begin with, as individuals and as systems? And started to pay attention to the trends, started to pay attention to what's long gone, what's emerging. And I'm here to share some of these observations with you and tie them back to the question of talent management. So one of the more interesting issues I think that are happening right now is, I call it the long goodbye. I think we're waving goodbye to simplicity at this point. And we come from systems, both educational and organizational, that embrace simplicity. And that's what we are really perfectly trained at, managing, dividing, conquering, managing top-down. I think all of this is really gone. And what I've seen over the past years is tremendous pressure, tremendous force, tremendous drive towards innovation. It is so all over the place. So I go to hackathons, and I go and sit in accelerator programs and incubators. And what I see there is I see young people, but not just. I myself participate in some of these activities as a participant. And they sit there and they generate ideas. And it is an economy of innovation, an economy of ideas. And I want to touch very briefly on the notion of change, the notion of complexity, as some of the conditions that we all need to react to, both in terms of our systems and in terms of our approach to talent management. I see that the slides look much better on my screen than on yours, so hold on with that. Let's get started with, why do we have so much complexity and change? I think partially because we can. And I want to tick through what it is that we can do now that we couldn't do just a little while ago. As I talk through all of this, I think in my book, a lot of what's going on relates to why is it so difficult to actually put our hands on good talent and retain good talent in an organization. It's just that the external noise and the opportunities externally are such that people find alternatives that are sometimes more sexy than to hospitalize themselves in big systems, as we know. So what can we do now that we couldn't do before? For one, we can make almost everything, and I'll show you some examples. We can sell everywhere, which raises the level of complexity even more. We work around the system, we work together differently, and we can handle much more with much less. I want to just give you a few examples. We're all aware of them, but it's interesting to just see them together. So at this point, we can make pretty much everything. You know this because everybody here follows the 3D printing revolution. And you know that you can print guitars and heart tissues and kidneys and what have you. And I remember years back when we started to look at this, people said, never going to really materialize. At this point, people print houses and people print internal organs, as you know. And this is 2014, so only God knows where this is going. But the difference is, because we can do or print everything, shall we say, or make everything, that this economy is now in the hands of entrepreneurs to capture market share. And so us as people are sitting in an economy that's going to have more and more innovation coming our way. This innovation wave is now being able to spread, not just worldwide in terms of how many people engage in this, but also in terms of how can you make it viable. So at this point, we can also sell everywhere, as you know. And you see emergent economies, and you see the internet economy, and you know exactly what it means to sell everywhere. One is you can have great opportunities around you. Two, there are many people that came to your market and are disrupting it. Three, we can work around the system, and we begin to see quite a number of manifestations of that. So to give you some examples, one that I really like the most, let's see if I can do that, it's this one here. So here's a French company that, here's a French arrangement that's made in a town in France to use the washing machines in town for the benefit of everybody. Washing machine as in my washing machine and your washing machine. So given that we don't we're not using our washing machine 24/7, right? I hope you don't. There are a few hours, during the week that your washing machine is just standing there. Maybe we can just lend it to someone who needs those kind of services. Working around the system. We work around the system with P2P platforms. We lend to each other, and this again is just the beginning. If I just pause for a second, I tick through very quickly, three emerging realities. One of great innovation everywhere because we can make everything. One because we can sell everything. One because we can work around the system. The people that we try to recruit to work with us and for us, this is the environment in which they now live. It's an environment of endless opportunities. We need to think about what do we do with that. The fourth, we can, at this point, work together across all possible boundaries. We have the Internet of Things as one boundary that's being broken. We have boundaries around age that are being broken. In TechCrunch in the city here in April of 2014, TechCrunch is a hackathon for all the techies, as you may know. There were 100 and something presenters over that weekend. One of them was 13 years old, and he was awesome. And when he was done presenting, people couldn't just help it. The person who was running the show asked him, "How old are you?" And he said, "I'm 13. So, innovation now cuts across ages, cuts across platforms, cuts across technologies. And lastly, there's so much noise because we can do more and more and more with less. So just to give you some examples of what lives here, this is how we grow food right now. This is what happens if you pass by an Adidas store in Frankfurt and you like what's on display. You'll just tag it and just order it from there straight to home. This is what's happening when you play tennis nowadays. You can get all the analytics that you need. And this is what's happening if you stand someplace in Austria waiting for the bus. You can just download a book as you stand there. So more and more experiences are bundled into our reality. I think when you take a step back and you assess what's going on, the level of newism, I don't think has never been as dramatic as it currently is. And it puts a burden on people that run businesses, people that teach, and people that manage, talent to think differently, basically. To really think differently, because the challenges are different, and you can't come at them with more of the same type of approach. So let's take a look at the so what here. Underneath everything that's happening, if to try and abstract, I think we will all agree that the world is becoming really flat in Tom Friedman's sense, or the Tom Friedman way. The world is becoming so empowered. If you think about this, we've never been in that position before. We've never been in a position where the world is so informed. There are about 2 billion people now logging in every day. There are 5 billion expected to log in by 2025 if you follow Peter Diamandis and some others. This requires a different way of looking at people in terms of how empowered they already are. Okay? We're not here to empower them. We're not here to engage them in a way that brings more empowerment to them. They are already empowered. They self-empower every day. They is us, is we, is all of us. Okay? We here are surely part of the 2 billion. When you manage with that in mind, you want to think about managing the complexity of change in a way that people are capable of addressing it. And in order to do that, there are at least the notion of empowerment acknowledged, there is the level of engagement, and there is a strong emphasis, in my opinion, on creativity. I think part of why we engage and part of why we enable empowerment is that people can create. It ties back to a sense of purpose, and it ties back to a sense of competitiveness. If people cannot participate effectively in creation, it really doesn't matter that they are engaged. So if you take into account the level of innovation around us, every business, and it doesn't really matter if it's a large business or if it's a small business, to survive, every person, it doesn't really matter if you're established or you're just joining, to survive, you have to be able to say something valuable. You have to be able to differentiate yourself. Have to be able to be creative, because this is one of the things that computers still have difficulties kicking us out of jobs on. So how do we do that? I don't have all the answers clearly. I don't know if anybody has all the answers. Doesn't really matter. I'll just share some of the answers that are out there. I think, and I just collected 3. One has to deal with how we enable people to manage their financials better as just another way of empowerment. One has to deal with how we gamify the environment for people so that they get engaged better with things that they might have not wanted to participate in. And my third topic, which I actually like the most, is how do we orchestrate the workplace environment to support what we want to see happening. So very, very quickly through some of these ideas. Here is just one platform, and as a by the way, most of the innovation is now happening outside of our main businesses. Most of the cutting edge practices, most of the cutting edge ideas, and surely most of the cutting edge platforms are happening outside. So the question is, can we partner effectively? We don't need to invent everything, we just need to identify where it is and what of that makes sense to us in the large organizations. You look at a company like Cashable, what they do is they enable people to get loans just to better manage their financial self. When you look at, and it's just your typical platform, it connects to your HR benefits, the employer doesn't need to pay anything. It's just that the employer comes as a purchaser, if you will, as loans in better conditions. Some of your employees, depending on the company that you come from, don't have access to good credit and don't have access to good loans. But they surely need to be managing their financial self so that they can manage everything else. So a company like Cashable online platform creates the opportunity for people to access money cheaply, which is something that you can participate in helping do. This is a small, low-hanging fruit. On the engagement, here are the same numbers as Karen cited earlier, exactly the same survey. People are not engaged. It's a very interesting issue if you think about it. I don't think that we can afford not to be engaged, and I never really understand the people who are disengaged. I just don't get it. I don't get the people that don't drive their bus. I don't get the people that let other people drive and they sit in the back and they bitch and moan and say, oh, I don't know. I don't understand that. In a world like this, you have to be your own driver, your own bus driver. So to begin with, I personally have trouble with the concept. But I think the numbers are really staggering and a real problem, because I think it's a privilege to even put yourself in a position of disengagement. The numbers around what it cost us are just enormous. This is just one calculation. Everybody here has their numbers on that. It's a known problem. Against that, what I've seen happening is more and more platforms come in to gamify the work experience for people. Gamify it so people get engaged with what it is you want to train them. The platforms there are unbelievable in terms of their efficacy. This is one company, Level Pro, who is there competing on engagement, and I just urge us to look to see who else is there gamifying the experience for people, especially on elements that they otherwise would not want to participate in, and make it much more, make an opportunity to get involved. Lastly, everything creativity. This is very interesting. We want people to innovate, and yet we put them in this cubicle land. And by show of hands, how many people here still work in an environment that's just full with cubicles? Okay, so how do we even make sense of something so sad? Okay, it just doesn't make any sense. You cannot urge people to collaborate. You cannot urge them to bump into each other and have those emergent interactions with great conversations and ideas are going to get exchanged if you cage them in an environment that's all about control, divide, and isolate. So what do we know about work environments? For now, for one, we know enough companies that this is what they live and breathe at this point. This is one of their key differentiator, and this is what they invite their talent to engage in. If I did my homework better, I would have Unilever as well. So apologize, but you already showed us your great work there. I want to take us very, very quickly, I have 3 minutes to do that, on where we were, where we are, and where we're heading. Where we're heading is really interesting. So we were here in cubicle land, and as we just saw, we're still there to some extent. We went to open space. I think, Kelly, you mentioned that. Open space proved to be, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. It's just the pendulum swung too far in the other direction. I want to talk a little bit also about where we're going. Today, one of the things we recognize is that we have to be able to focus the environment on 3 types of activities, on I, on you and I, and on we type of activities. So there is things that we want to do in isolation because we need to concentrate. There are activities that require that you and I converse, and then there are activities that require that there's going to be some team effort to collaborate. We want to have that logic when we build the environment. Here are some representations of that. You can do a kind of a we type of an environment. Here is another we, some more we, but then in the back here, some I type of work, and easy to reconfigure the space. Well-being is a great theme, and it's an important theme because life and work have blended, as we know, and we are at work for very many hours. So do we enable this type of arrangement so that people can actually exercise as they go? Well-being is also radiates through the internal decor. People like to work from wherever they like to work. The notion of chain to the desk, please throw it to the ocean. So, there have to be enough flexibility that the workplace environment enables so that people are much more productive this way. There is this notion of home away from home. If you look at the actual decor of the environment, sometimes you don't even know that this is an office space. And it's interesting because it puts the mind at a level of ease. And I want to talk a little bit about where we're heading. One, the environment becomes much more responsive. So not only is it very flexible, but this is very interesting. You come in, it taps your mood, and it begins to channel to you the kind of work that if you're in a pissy mood, that's your time to do. Okay? If you're in a happy mood, let's put you in some collaborative options. The environment also are there to inform you. We can do a lot with technology now to immerse you in certain experiences that are also loaded on data and information that's relevant to you when it's relevant to you. The environment is there to create some humanized interface. We can take every surface and turn it into a workstation very, very humanely in very gentle type of technology. The environment is there to make it comfortable for you to work whichever way you want. Here is just one workstation that IDEO developed a few years back. We're heading into environments that are focused on collaboration, on well-being, home away from home, responsive, making us smarter, humanized, and comfortable. I think the last comment to make in the 8-7-6 seconds that I have is that the change actually starts here. It starts with how you envision your work and how much of a change leader you want to be within the context of your role, because I think you're the ones that can really influence this change to happen. Thank you very much.